This day in sports history. Well, it's January 28th, and on this day throughout sports history, we had Tiger Woods stepping into rarefied air once again. A baseball star in his prime was paralyzed, and a basketball player was given a horse for having a really good game. Those stories, plus others on the way, along with a non-sports fun fact at the end about in-flight movies that you probably didn't know about. This episode will tee off right after this. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural, and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. So let's start with what happened on this day in 2007 when Tiger Woods won a golf tournament. Now, for a guy who won 82 of them, including 15 majors, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal. An early season tournament on the West Coast is not any more noteworthy than any other week on tour, and certainly less important than the 4 majors that draw the spotlight throughout the year. But this win was special. This was the Buick Invitational played at Torrey Pines. It was a golf course that he devoured on a routine basis throughout his career. He'd won the previous 2 Buick Invitationals, and he had also won 6 consecutive PGA tournaments. Now, to clarify, those 6 consecutive were not in consecutive weeks. He'd won the last 6 PGA events he'd entered in 2006, tying him for second on the list with Ben Hogan and his own mark that he'd set back in 1999. On the final day in 2007 of the Buick Invitational, in the final pairing, Tiger was in a dogfight with Charles Howell III. When they came to the par 5 18th, Woods had a 1-shot lead, but Howell put a little pressure on him when he hit the green with his second shot and then had a 6-footer for birdie, while Tiger was just off the green lying 4. But Howell's putt skated past the high side of the hole and he tapped in for a par. Tiger's chip left him about 3 feet for his par and the win.
Now Tiger to make it 7 straight wins.
And it's win 55.
Yes. That is the second longest win streak in history on the PGA Tour.
So as you heard Jim Nantz say there, that win gave him the second longest win streak in PGA Tour history, behind only Byron Nelson's incredible 11 straight in 1945. Here at the start of the 07 season, his win on this day had a lot of people wondering if Tiger was on the way to topping Byron's record. But this would prove to be the final win in the streak. He lost a few weeks later in the 3rd round of the WGC Accenture Match Play event. This was also one of the 18 times he won at Torrey Pines. That is a PGA Tour record for wins at a single venue. On this day in 1958, Dodgers catcher Roy Campanella was severely injured in a car accident. It was the offseason for Major League Baseball, and the Brooklyn Dodgers had just made the move to Los Angeles in advance of the season starting in a couple of months. Spring training was less than a month away. Campanella had been the Dodgers' starting catcher for the past decade, called up the year after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier, and Campy had been one of the best in the game in that time. He won the National League Most Valuable Player Award 3 times, led the league in RBI in his MVP year of 1953, and he cut down 58% of base stealers in his career. On this night, Campy had just wrapped up a long day of business at the liquor store and nightclub that he owned in Harlem, and he was on his way home to Long Island in a rented 1957 Chevrolet when he fell asleep at the wheel and slammed into a telephone pole and then rolled the vehicle. The accident broke his neck and compressed his spinal cord, leaving him paralyzed from the shoulders down. While he would eventually regain use of his arms and hands, he would never walk again. Understandably, the finality of his career coming to an end prematurely and his prognosis put him in a very dark place. He bitterly asked friends, "Why me?" He started drinking heavily, and it took a toll on his marriage, ending in divorce a few years later. He eventually pulled himself out of his misery, becoming an outspoken advocate for disabled people. He raised awareness of those in wheelchairs and the hardships that they faced in everyday life just getting around. When he was playing for the Dodgers, he was always known for his infectious smile, and he kept that as he tried to inspire people facing similar situations to him. As for the Dodgers, they missed Campanella in the lineup and they struggled without him. An 84-win team in '57 was just a 71-win team in '58. When he was released from the hospital, he knew he'd never return to the field as a player, but he was ready to get back to some role with the Dodgers.
Well, I've played baseball just about all my life, and I don't think I can stop now. I think, yes, I'd definitely be connected with baseball some way or the other.
He did return to baseball. The Dodgers did their best to take care of him, hiring Campanella as a supervisor of scouting in the East in 1959 and eventually bringing him to Los Angeles to be a community ambassador for the club. Dodgers owner Peter O'Malley said no one had more courage than Roy Campanella. He was the greatest Dodger of them all. He followed Jackie Robinson once again, becoming the second black athlete elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1969. Yesterday, we talked about Super Bowl 25 between the Giants and the Bills that ended with the Giants winning by just a point. It's the closest margin of victory and the only time that a Super Bowl has been decided by just a point. Well, on this day, it was the opposite end of the spectrum. This was Super Bowl 24 between the San Francisco 49ers and the Denver Broncos. The Niners were defending Super Bowl champs. Bill Walsh had given up the reins of the team to George Seifert, who kept the party train rolling, guiding the Niners to a 14-2 regular season and an impressive run in the playoffs with blowout wins of the Vikings and the Rams. That theme carried over into the championship game. The Niners struck on their first possession. Here's Pat Summerall and John Madden, who were calling the action for CBS that day.
2nd and 8. Typical 49er drive. Montana looked to Rathman, hits Rice. Rice scores for San Francisco.
And then on their final possession of the first half.
They have to watch that. Montana going up top to Rice, touchdown.
That touchdown pass elevated Montana above Terry Bradshaw for career TD passes in Super Bowls with 9. But there were still more to come. Following a John Elway interception, the Niners struck on the next play.
Sure didn't look like it. 1st and 10, 49ers. At the Denver 28. Rice, touchdown.
That made it 34-3, and things did not get any better for the Broncos after that. Montana threw his 5th touchdown pass later in the third to John Taylor. He completed 22 of 29 passes for 297 yards and 5 touchdowns. Rice had 7 catches for 148 yards and his 3 touchdowns. San Francisco had possession for nearly 40 minutes of this game. The Niner defense, which was the stingiest in the NFL that season, had 4 takeaways. The 55-10 final score set several records. It's still the most points scored by one team in a Super Bowl, and the 45-point differential is still the biggest winning margin. On this day in 1975, it was the ABA All-Star Game. Now, in yesterday's edition, I talked about the first dunk contest as part of the ABA All-Star Game, with Dr. J taking home a stereo hi-fi as part of his winnings. Well, that was 1976 in Denver, and they probably learned a little something from what happened a year earlier in San Antonio. Whereas now there are hundreds and hundreds of people who help put a special event like an All-Star Game on. Well, back in '75, there were 4 guys total with the San Antonio Spurs to organize it and bring it all together. They managed to do it and in a lot of ways came up with some big ideas. As for the game, St. Louis's Freddie Lewis had a hot hand early, and he scored 12 points in the first quarter on the way to a game-high 26 points to go along with his 10 assists. He was named Most Valuable Player, and he received a very special gift. Here's Wayne Witt, who was one of those very important four guys and specifically was the Spurs media relations guy back then.
Our goal was to make it as Texas as possible, and the MVP of the game was to get I think it was a Stetson, a big Western hat, and a registered quarter horse. We got the horse. It was named Tough Julie. Walked the horse literally through the Hemisphere Arena. Freddie Lewis from St. Louis won the award, and I remember that he didn't have a clue what to do with his horse. He tried to wear the hat, but in those days the afros wouldn't permit it. Finally, we sold the horse to a dentist here in town, sent the money to Freddie Lewis, and about a month later the horse died from malnutrition.
Freddie made about $2,000 from the sale of the horse to go along with his Stetson hat. And some quick ones that may help you in bar trivia this week. On this day in 1957, American tennis player Shirley Fry beat fellow American Althea Gibson in straight sets to win the Australian singles title, completing the career Grand Slam for Fry in singles. She would also accomplish the same career Grand Slam in doubles. It was Fry's only Australian win and Gibson's only appearance in the Aussie finals. On this day in 1934, the first rope tow at a ski resort went into action in Woodstock, Vermont. Prior to that, once you got to the bottom, you had to sidestep or climb your way back to the top. And on this day in 1991, Red Grange died, the man who earned the nickname the Galloping Ghost while a collegiate star at Illinois, and is largely considered to have single-handedly saved professional football in its early days with his barnstorming tours, was 87 years old. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you've flown on a long-distance flight in the last decade or so, you've probably scrolled through the list of movies and TV shows you can watch to make the flight a little more bearable. Well, the in-flight movie was not a thing until 1961, when TWA started showing movies to first-class passengers during its New York to Los Angeles route. The first movie ever shown on a flight was By Love Possessed, starring Lana Turner and Jason Robards. Now, it is fortunate that this awful film did not kill the practice of in-flight entertainment. Even Robards called it one of the worst films ever made. That's all I've got for you today. Come on back tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.